And it was interesting to see the way people looked at me. Well, you didn't obviously really grow up in Flint, which meant, oh, you're white. Were you from the suburbs? All right, so what were we talking about today? We were going to start talking about our hometowns and how they impact us as an introduction to our season 2.
Yes, you got to set that up.
I think I just did.
The moderator. You got to set that up. All right. I could tell a million. I feel like I have 2 hometowns, which is weird. But and they each played a good role. But if I have to say I'm from somewhere, I always say from the first place that I lived.
Yeah.
Although my mom corrects me because it's a weird thing.
I have learned that my kids consider their hometown Wilson. You know, they were both born in Flint. Joseph lived there till he was almost 5. But yeah, they consider Wilson their hometown. That's where Joseph went to kindergarten through 8th grade.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
It does.
That makes sense.
It's just weird to me.
Yeah, but Anthony is born in Daytona Beach, so Palm Coast is his hometown.
Yeah.
Poor kid.
Aw.
Poor kid.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Strongly Worded. Episode 1, how do I say that? Season 2, Episode 1?
Yes.
I am Sue O'Lear.
And I am Johnny Hampton.
And we are coming at you from our new and improved dining room studio.
Yes. Check one. Hopefully it sounds a lot better than it has been.
Yeah, we invested in a little equipment upgrade over the break. And I sat down in YouTube podcaster school a couple times to try to get a crash course in how to use it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Super producer Soulier.
We're not there yet. But we hope that you had a nice, relaxing, fun holiday season. I packed away all the Christmas to pull out the new studio, move it back in the dining room.
Meanwhile, my Christmas tree is still up. It's going down tonight, though.
Is it?
Yeah, because if it doesn't, my wife's going to kill me.
I said to your wife, I've got all the Christmas lights packed away till next October.
She tried to skip over it like, that's hilarious. Happy Halloween here at Christmas.
I would totally send Joe and the kids out trick-or-treating and start putting up Christmas lights back in the day. So season 2, we decided with season 2, we're going to have a little bit of a story arc. We're going to have a bit of a theme. And we're going to flesh it out with this introductory episode. We are going to talk to you about our hometowns and how they have shaped us, or maybe others, how they've impacted us, the identity of our hometown and the identity of the urban black man and the middle-aged white woman from the Midwest. That was a season 1 joke, folks.
Hopefully they listened in season 1.
So they know what I'm talking about. And then we have a series of guests lined up throughout the season to talk about their impact on their hometowns.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we've got some really interesting stories lined up to tell.
Yeah, that I'm excited about, especially one guy in particular, to hear his story, because I think it's needed.
I was talking to someone at work last week. I was meeting a resident who was coming in wanting to teach a class, and we were kind of talking about how COVID has been great for sort of launching personal initiatives. I mean, you and I sitting here in front of these microphones, a personal initiative that might have still taken some time if we didn't have some time to really talk and find our banter and our voice and everything together during COVID. I don't know. I mean, we joked that a lot of the reason why we started talking so much was because I was working from home and you were off.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Off. You were on a vacation.
you were off for a bit. And some of the guests that we have lined up, I think, made certain impacts or had certain things happen because of the same reason. You know, we hope to talk to a business owner who made the choice to let their business front some political issues.
Yeah.
And we've got someone who is going to be making a TV show here in this town.
Nice.
And just several interesting folks coming up. And we can't wait to bring that to you. But let's set it up and start talking a little bit about our hometowns and the impact it had on us and maybe we had on it. Johnny, where are you from?
I am from Queens, New York. Born in Jamaica, Queens. Lived there for a little while. But what I call my hometown is Flushing, Queens. I kind of have two hometowns because I lived in Flushing, Queens up until age 13. And then I moved to Jamaica, Queens, a place called Rochdale Village, where I spent from 13 to, 21 when I moved out of my parents' house. So I kind of have two hometowns, and they've each impacted me in ways that, I still use some of the lessons I've learned from those towns today at 44 years old. So they impacted me greatly, which is why I think sometimes I don't understand the kids of today. But that's a different conversation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Flushing, Queens, when I lived there, was a very low to middle class neighborhood, depending on where you lived at. I lived in Carlisle Towers. Shout out to Carlisle kids. And it was very diverse. It was multiracial, multicultural. We had Asian, Muslim, Arab, I should say, I guess, black, white, all different kind of religions, Muslim, Catholic, Baptist, Hindu. And that's where I spent my formative years, I would say, which is why today, I always tell people, like, if you look at my actual Facebook friends list, it's very diverse. It's not just 520 black people, So I learned some things there, positive and negative, that I still take with me today because that was like my foundation, my basis.
Yep. So I'm from Flint. And the first time I really realized that I was from a place that people outside of Flint, had an opinion of my town was when the movie Roger and Me came out. I don't remember what year, late 80s, mid-late 80s. When my parents moved to Flint in the 60s, it was at its height. 200,000 people, booming economy. All the Buicks and Chevrolets were made, between Flint and Detroit. My dad's business was a supplier to the automotive industry.
Smart business.
Right? So, and then, and my brothers, I think, sort of tasted some of that. But by the time I was coming up and in elementary, middle, and high school, it was really changing. In the 70s is when, the automakers began sort of disinvesting in Flint, and it began that, urban decay, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's funny how businesses, whether they come or they leave, how they affect towns.
And it seems like since the part of Flint that I know, that I'm familiar with, is about all of these programs and attempts to revitalize. At the same time, something shitty's happening to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I think what that means is that people from Flint have a certain grit to them, a certain toughness about them that I really like.
Yeah, I often say when you're from New York City, like a real borough in New York City, no disrespect to upstate and all that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about your Queens, your Brooklyn, Harlem, stuff like that, that it hardens you in a way that you can go anywhere and do anything.
I'm certain that it is coming from Flint is one of the reasons why I was so successful in Chicago. Sort of not, I mean, I was tough. A lot of the kids who came to that theater program stayed within the confines of that little conservatory because it was sort of scary not to be, or they stepped out of the confines of it and just handled it badly.
Yeah, and it sounds like me and you are from places that you've seen some things that, you know, there's not a lot of other places that can scare you as much.
Right.
You know, I feel that way a lot of times. Like, listen, I've seen some things. You know, this little town in Florida is not gonna scare me that much. I don't worry because of where I'm from and what I've seen.
And which isn't to say that I didn't have a relatively privileged upbringing. I did. I didn't experience Flint in the same way that everybody experiences Flint. But I definitely had an awareness and a pride in everything that community has come through. And the people that I was friends with then continue to have, so many of them continue to try to have a positive impact on the community and the people. It's about half the size it was in its heyday, maybe a little less. There's barely 100 cops on the street.
My mom always gets mad at me because she acts like, you know, she thinks like when I talk about Flushing, like, you act like we were so poor. Listen, we weren't destitute, but when I say that my bedroom was supposed to be the dining room, that's an actual fact. Like, that's true. Like, we had a nice house, but it was a 1-bedroom house with 3 people in there. So, and like I said, my room was supposed to be the dining room. But I loved Flushing. I did not want to move from there. I cried. I stayed in my house a year when we moved to Rochdale because I was already going to the 9th grade. And so
It's like what we did to Joseph. When we
so I dig it. I understand that a lot. And it was, and part of it was like almost like a culture shock. So like in Flushing, they have areas that are urban, Palmanock, Colden Street, and I hung out in those areas. But when you move to Jamaica, Queens, it ain't like Flushing. It just isn't. And anybody who's lived in both places can tell you that. Rochdale is a lot different than Flushing. It's all black people all the time. It's crack vials on the basketball court. It's hearing gunshots at parties. Those are 2 different experiences. I didn't experience that in Flushing. That I'd like. There's some people who did. I'm just not one of them.
Right.
My experience in Flushing was a lot different. And so when I moved, I hated it. And I stayed in my house for a year because I was still going to school in Flushing. That's why. And I still had friends there. And I would go, when I hung out, I would go back to Flushing for the first year.
How far apart?
Yeah, Flushing is like 45, well, about an hour by bus. Yeah, so you got to take 2 buses. So it wasn't that bad. But, you know, you can't, that's not sustainable, though.
Yeah, that's
like
tough.
you eventually have to make friends where you live.
Yeah. We were talking just before we started recording about how my kids consider their hometown different, not the town that they were born in,
Right.
but the town that they spent a lot of formative years in. And that town is so completely different than where they were born and where we were from.
Yeah.
You know, this small southern tobacco town in North Carolina versus
It ain't Flint.
it ain't Flint.
My oldest child was born in New York, in Queens, but we moved here when Tiara was 7. So I doubt Tiara says I'm from New York. You could say you were born in New York.
Right.
My son is a Floridian. He's wearing Crocs and slides. He is a straight, he's walking around with no shirt on whenever he can. He's a straight Floridian. Which again, I think sometimes that's why me and him miss each other. When I was 13, I was a more mature 13 because of where I lived.
Yep.
And what I had experienced. he's less mature because of his environment, I think. So that's why, sometimes we we miss each other. I'm like, I don't understand this kid sometimes. And my wife has to tell me, he's not like you. And we have that talk from time to time about our kids, how they grew up as opposed to where we're from and how we grew up, and how we were at certain ages compared to how they were, and how we have to dial back sometimes our expectations because our hometowns influenced us in such a way that we were probably too old, older than we should have been at 21.
I think that Joseph has a lot more Flint in him than he thinks.
I think so too.
For sure. I mean, definitely. I think he has a lot more. And when the 4.5 years he spent there, and he went to preschool there and things like that, his friends were diverse. And it's just a different kind of sensibility.
He has that quiet Midwestern toughness. He has that. Like when you go and you travel, like some people from like New York, we all, sometimes we talk about how tough we are. But other places they don't.
They just
and
are.
then you get into a fight and you're like, oh shit, this guy's
And they just are.
Right. He's like that.
Yeah.
He just is.
He just shows up where he needs to be.
That's it. I had to acquire that.
Yeah.
I used to tell you I was coming.
Yeah. So by the time I didn't realize, I don't know if any of us do, how much Flint was a part of me until I left it. Right. And not only was I going into a place where what people knew about Flint was from the Michael Moore film, but that's also when Flint started appearing on all those lists of murder capital,
oh my
most
goodness,
violent city in America, all of this. And it was interesting to see the way people looked at me. Well, you didn't obviously really grow up in Flint, which meant, oh, you're white. Were you from the suburbs? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's interesting. See, I don't have that experience because I think, like when I tell people I'm from New York, they automatically assume that I'm from the inner city, and I can't really dispute that because I am. But I don't. So that's an interesting experience to have.
It is.
Yeah.
When we, as adults, moved back to Flint, when we were pregnant with Joseph, when I was pregnant with Joseph, and Joe and I bought a house in Flint, not in the suburbs. One of the I was involved with the Junior League of Flint. I know. That was an interesting experiment because I really, one of the reasons why I didn't really feel like I fit in with those women is because so many of them didn't live in Flint. They lived in the suburbs. So it felt like they would do things to donate money to my city, but they didn't want to have their events in the city. They didn't live in the city. They weren't
of the city.
They weren't of the city. They weren't going out to eat in the city. They weren't sending their kids to school in the city. And if any of you are listening right now, hi.
Hey, but
I'm not slamming anyone individually at all. It is definitely something I spoke about at the time too. One of their big fundraisers, they were looking to move out of the city, and that was about the time I was done with the group. Well, if we're not willing to step foot in the city.
But that happens everywhere, right? Like we deal, I mean, this is a tangent, but we deal with that here. We have a basketball league that's in a city that people kind of look down on, and they don't want to come to the gym, but we're never moving. You know what I'm saying? So like,
it's our identity.
Right. Like, and people think like you can't change anything from the outside. You got to be there. You got to be in it.
Yep.
You got to be talking to the people. You got to find out what's going on there. Like, just throwing money at a problem, that's not going to work. It never has worked. So I understand that. And you get that a lot all the time with things going on in inner cities like that. And people say, oh, yeah, we're trying to fix it, but you live out in Long Island. And, like where I'm from, you live out in Long Island. You never come to the hood. You don't know what's going on.
Yep. It's like they work up at corporate.
Right.
and
Yes.
we're boots on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah, that's how it is, and it's frustrating because you talk to people and they don't know what they're talking about because they're talking about some kind of romanticized or fetishized version of the city you're from.
Well, we had that a little bit when the league was playing in two different gyms.
Yeah.
And one of the gyms was, here in Palm Coast, and one of the gyms was not. And even one of the volunteers with our organization said at one point, "Oh, save all the games and the cow and the raffles and stuff for when you're in Palm Coast."
And we told him, "You're insane."
He's no longer with us.
Yeah, like that's not.
That's not.
More people come to the games when we're in Benel.
Yeah.
More people come to the games when we're in Benel. And so, yeah, I mean, I get it. I get upset with that because what people don't realize is, like, I'm from cities that look like Benel. So when you say that, it kind of turns me off a little bit. Like my wife will say, "Oh, Benel, it is different," but if you don't think, if I tell somebody I'm from Rochdale or Jamaica, Queens, that they don't look at me like certain people look at the people from Benel, then you're crazy.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah. So, and I started to touch on this point earlier. Some of my friends, some of the kids I grew up with have turned into these amazing humans who still contribute to the community. One of my friends from middle school and high school, I dated him in high school for a little while. He went away to college and he was a Rhodes Scholar and he, worked in DC and did all this stuff, but he came back, he founded Flint Club first, which was a way for all of us from Flint that had settled all over the country to still
keep in contact,
raise money, do different things that could directly impact the community. And he eventually moved back to Flint, and I hope at some point maybe we can get him on the podcast too. He eventually ran and was the mayor of Flint for a while.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll get to talk to him about that period of time in his life, but I certainly
he might not want to talk about that.
And I don't know if he can.
Yeah, that's true.
But I am really interested in talking to him about his experiences giving back to Flint while he was kind of all over the country and the world.
Yeah, I grew,
and why? Why? What was the allure?
In Flushing, I actually grew up with some people who are like hip hop royalty now. And some of them still live right in Flushing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like one of them, shout out to Large Professor. He's like a historic producer, and I believe he still lives there. And it's amazing how, even when you grow up in certain circumstances, just how great you can be and how much you can do for others. And he's like that.
Yeah.
If you were a rapper from Flushing, he would try to help you out. He was never a big timer. I remember, like I said, I moved. By the time he became really big, I was living in Jamaica. But I remember I saw him. I was working at parking violations, and he had to pay some parking tickets. And he was like, "Johnny." I was like, "Oh, my goodness." And we talked for a little while, and he was never a big timer. But then you have people who want to forget they ever came from there. See, I'm not one of those people. Like, I've gotten a college degree, and I moved. I live in the suburbs now, but I'm not one of those people who forget where they came from.
Absolutely not. It's definitely still.
I can't do that because it's ingrained in me, but almost too much. When I first moved here, oh my goodness. I had so much trouble turning off.
The New York?
It was like, I remember somebody had parked their car, like it was in my swell, and I was like, I just kept saying, "Yo, if they don't get their fuck," like I was like so mad. It was like, chill, like just it's hard though.
Yeah.
It was very hard for like the first 2 or 3 years for me to turn off that hardness. It was difficult.
I remember when we first moved to North Carolina, from Flint, and I couldn't handle how slow people moved and drove and talked. Like, don't you people have somewhere to be?
I still have trouble with that. Like, I get up, I still have trouble with how laid back people are here. Like, if I tell you I'm gonna be somewhere at 1, I'm trying to get there at 1.
You're trying to get there at like 5 to 1.
Yeah, I'm a stickler for time. Like, I don't like, but that's just the New Yorker in me. Like, we always going. But, you move to Florida and they're like, oh, 1 o'clock means 1:10.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and they what? Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be late. They got a whole slang for.
Yes, for that. But when you think about it, it makes sense because, you, just like you said, you lived in this place that's always moving.
Right.
It's always on the move. It's always hustle bustle. And, like when I want to relax, I go to the beach. When I want to be creative, I go to this type of environment. When I want to, your environment affects.
Yeah, for the longest time, I didn't even go to the beach here. Like, I just started going to the beach here this summer.
I know.
Yeah, like
I don't understand that.
I don't know. Like, and I do a lot of things. Like, my wife is always like, "You never take a break." I'm just not used to it. Like, when I'm like today, I was supposed to do something this morning, and then it got canceled, and I didn't know what the hell to do with myself. I was like, well, maybe I'll binge one. So
Meanwhile, I've been laying on the corner of my bed for 4 days. I don't have any trouble slowing down.
I wish I could slow down more, but I can't. And I'm skeptical of people all the time too, because of where I'm from. Like, I don't trust. I trust family and friends easily once I trust you. But if I don't know you, nah.
Yeah.
I don't. You have to prove it to me.
But I think some of these environments produce such vital, awesome people.
I would not be who I am today if I didn't live in the 2 places I lived.
Yeah.
And that's a fact.
I have a friend that went to school and became a nutritionist, and now she works to feed hungry kids in the community we grew up in.
See?
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
I have, a guy who was one of my closest friends in middle and high school is a filmmaker. And he brought his business back to Michigan, and there's a film that's timeless, really, that he made called The Anatomy of Hate, which
I gotta look it up now.
You gotta look it up. He has a few. I mean, he talks about these issues that we grew up in, but he can pull these themes from, all walks of life, all areas of the country, all over the world. He made a film, When Elephants Fight, the one I told you that Robin Wright narrated.
Oh yeah.
About the situation in Congo, and I mean, it's just like we all kind of came out of the same place. And
I got a dude who still lives in Rochdale. He lived in my building, and he was like on the board, and he's like, because Rochdale is a co-op. People don't realize that. My wife often calls it a project, but it is not. It's a co-op. It's just that it's all black people, and in the late 80s and 90s, it wasn't the greatest place to live, but it's actually a co-op. And he grew up, and he's a city bus driver, but he was on the co-op board for a while. And he would post stuff and try to get things done. And that, we have a generation of people who are doing that, that are trying to lift up the place where they come from, instead of running from that place.
Right. And that, I feel like that is a really awesome thing. Like, I'm truly thankful to be from where I'm from. And, it kind of, when I was preparing for today, I realized I haven't been to Flint since 2009.
Ooh, the last time I was in Flushing was probably... See, I haven't been to New York in a while. Last time I was in Flushing was probably 07, 08, something like that.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I keep getting further and further away from it.
Yeah.
And I keep living in places that people will come visit.
Yeah, I remember I was in Flushing and I went to see my babysitter, and she was busy that day, and I didn't know at the time that she was fighting cancer.
Oh.
And so I never got to see her again, which was sad.
That is sad.
Yeah. But yeah, I got to take a picture with my, when I was there, I got to take a picture with one of my 6th grade teachers. I went by my elementary school, and he remembered me.
Yeah.
which is insane.
Isn't that nuts that they do?
Yeah, because that was like, we talking about 20-something years.
Mm-hmm.
And he remembered me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I haven't been home in a while.
I mean, that's something that's also kind of cool about Facebook.
Yes.
Being able to, at least in the beginning of Facebook, when you could.
Nah, Facebook is cool if you use it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends from where I grew up because of Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I need to go back, though, because I need to. Well, now Tiara's getting old, so who knows. But I wanted them to see where I used to live so they can have a appreciation for how they live.
How good they have it. There is a new t-shirt lady in Palm Coast, ladies and gentlemen. Dear C is a full-service custom t-shirt design company, and she has Johnny and me looking good. If you follow our social, and if you don't, you totally should, then you've seen the cool new strongly worded t-shirts that I had made up for us and our families. Tracy took great care of me through the entire process, answered all my questions, gave me lots of options, and in the end, I got great-looking t-shirts at an extremely competitive price. Her work will also soon be seen on the fans of the Flagler County Basketball League. Dear C, spelled DIER''CI of Palm Coast, can be reached at 1-847-890-9949 or dearc@hotmail.com. You can check that out in our show notes. And she will take care of all of your custom t-shirt needs. Well, my mom wants to go back this spring. She's asking me to plan a trip with her.
That's nice.
To go back and see the old neighborhoods, see the old houses.
Yeah.
A couple of the old haunts.
Yeah.
Of course, when I start thinking about it, I'm thinking of all the restaurants I want to go back to. The food that I miss.
Oh, man.
Like New Yorkers and pizza.
Yeah.
We have Coney dogs.
Listen, New York has the best pizza.
Mm-hmm. Well, Flint has the best Coney dogs.
When I go home, I have to have pizza from a certain spot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it used to be Margaritas, but I don't know if they. I assume it's still there. But yeah, I would like. We went back to Brooklyn, and I'm not from Brooklyn, but we lived there. my son was not impressed with New York City.
I remember you telling me that.
This dude was like, "Yo, when are we going home? This place is dirty. It's filthy." I'm like, "Yo, this is where me and your mom fell in love." He's like, "Chill." I could care less.
That's hilarious.
He hated it. Absolutely hated it. Let me ask you, what do you think is the number one thing you took from your hometown that made you who you are today?
I think probably a couple things, but the first thing I was going to say is I'm scrappy. Like I'll
You're scrappy?
Shut up.
Really?
And I don't mean fighting with my fists, though I can do that. But it doesn't matter how dire a situation seems. I will climb my way out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. For me, from Flushing, I think the number one thing I took is that to be able to recognize different cultures and races.
Mm-hmm.
I had a unique experience there. When I was a kid, I dated all kind of different cultures. My friends were different. Like today, right now, like one of my closest friends from there is a white Catholic who lives in Port Orange, who I never get to see now because of coronavirus.
Ugh.
And like I hung out with a lot of Asian kids, where I was like the only black kid with them sometimes. And they never made me feel like the only black kid. So I got to see that. And so it kind of informs you that everyone who doesn't look like you is not all bad. And I think that was important for me.
Yep.
So from there, but from Rochdale, oh man, I learned so much stuff. And I was actually talking about this yesterday. Like, I don't understand these kids. Like, I wasn't a street kid. There's nobody, like, I didn't know. I wasn't on the corner selling drugs. I don't inflate my lifestyle like that. But I was around people who did those things. And even when you're around them, you understand how the game is supposed to be. And so that is what I've taken from there, and just the hustle.
Yeah.
Everyone who lived there was trying to hustle to be somebody. They could be, hey, it could have been illegal means, like, hey, I'm trying to be the best basketball player to get this scholarship. It could have been illegal, like, yo, I got to sell these things. But everybody was scrapping to try to be somebody.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't understand the kids today. The people who were doing illegal things never took pictures of it and put it on Instagram for the world to see.
Yeah.
If you had a whole bunch of cash in your pocket, you wasn't flashing it in the middle of the... I don't understand that. There's no knock on if you want to do that. Be safe. Do your thing. I don't talk about what I have. Yeah, I don't. So I don't understand a lot of that stuff. Because where I'm from, you don't do that. You don't talk about... Like, I used to caution Tiara all the time, and even Anthony. Like, if we're in a store and you got a whole bunch of cash, pull out what you need to pay. Don't pull out your whole entire wad of cash for everybody to see.
Yeah.
Now, there's just certain things that I learned from there. Like, if you're talking to a girl, you don't tell the whole world you're talking to them, because then the next guy is going to want what you got.
There are aspects of Flint that are so... I remember what I was going to say. So in one of our past episodes, we were talking about when we were talking about separating celebrities' work from their life. There's such an aspect of Flint that is so full of culture and art and music and dance and this beautiful vitality that I don't think you have to look that hard to find. And it was a huge part of my experience with Flint. They have this amazing art institute. They have, a whole cultural center, and the Institute of Music, this amazing production of the Nutcracker every year that we all, that touched pretty much all of us in some way. You know what I mean? Whether you were in it or went to see it, or it was a tradition, a family tradition, or your elementary school, went there on a field trip to check it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it kind of touched everybody. And when I owned the business later on, part of my identity as a trainer was, no, you don't get in shape before you try that. You don't get ready before you try that class. You don't you register for the race now.
Yeah.
Like you got to do it now. And I think that's definitely part of where I come from. Like, you don't have to be prepared to, like, all your circumstances are never going to be right to flourish.
That's true.
So flourish now.
Yeah, that's very true. And thinking about the stuff you're saying about art and stuff like that, when you look around the country, and this is like a tangent, a lot of these inner cities get gentrified. And when they do, they lose some of that stuff.
Yeah, what makes it so unique.
Right. And it's like when we went back to Brooklyn, my father-in-law was ill, and we went to some of the old neighborhoods that we used to live in, and it was like, what's happened here? It's totally different. And it's no disrespect, like, hey, but then, these white kids are on skateboards, like, and like, it's just a different vibe. And so you don't want that. It's a fine line between trying to revitalize a neighborhood and then wiping away what made the neighborhood what it is.
Right.
And America's never learned how to do that. They'd rather just tear it down, get those people out, move them somewhere else,
right,
and turn the whole place into condos or something like that. And then the little bodega down the street is gone, but there's a Walmart now. Those are the things that happen. Like, so, yeah, New York is different now. When I went back, I didn't recognize it. And that's sad. But there's people who still there that love it. It's just different.
It's just a different
place
different. To live.
I'm sure people say that about here now. These Northerners came.
I know.
Look what they did.
What famous people are from where you're from?
Famous people where I'm from. Let's see.
Because I did a little research.
Did you?
I had to just look up. I didn't look up where you were from, but I went down a wiki rabbit hole
Let's
reading
see.
about Flint.
From Flushing, got Large Professor. Royal Flush is a rapper. Mike Geronimo. Let's see. There's a lot of famous people from Flushing, Queens. Actually, those are the three off the top of my head because I know them. And from if you're from Jamaica, the larger Jamaica, there's a lot of famous people. 50 Cent, Lost. There's a lot of famous people. LL Cool J is from right around the corner from where I used to live in Jamaica, Queens, and I actually met him twice.
Really?
Yeah, I never told you.
Cool.
The funniest story is, so I'm at the mall with a buddy of mine and these two girls, and we're trying to do what we're trying to do. And LL Cool J walks by us at the mall. And the girl wanted me to kiss her, and I gave her a hug and went to talk to LL Cool J. I was like, and what grade? I think I was in like 10th or 11th grade when that happened.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, LL Cool J's here. Like, y'all getting on the bus? Bye. I don't know how long LL Cool J. So yeah, I mean, you see in New York, you see people walking around like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's not from my hometown, but I remember once I was going to work and I saw Samuel L. Jackson. Wow. I was starstruck.
Did you hear him first?
No, I
you
saw him first. He's tall.
Is he?
No,
really?
It wasn't Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sorry. It was Danny Glover.
Oh wow.
It was Danny Glover. He was shooting a movie. I worked at Parade magazine, and he was shooting a movie. I forget the name of the movie, but it was around there. And he was coming from the gym, and he was tall.
Really?
And that's what I remember about seeing him, how tall he was. And he was walking down, and I was walking up the street, and I just looked at him like, that's Danny Glover. And I was like, that's the only, it's so funny because I don't even, like, I'm not some huge Danny Glover fan. So I don't even know what shocked me about it. But I remember he looked at me, he said, "Good morning, sir." And he kept walking.
Alrighty then.
I was like, wow. Yeah, Danny Glover is the only person I've ever been starstruck.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
I get starstruck kind of easily.
Yeah, man. Now we're off on a tangent. How many, what's the most famous person you met? Because mine will probably be him. Or LL Cool J. I don't know who you think is more famous now.
Well, let's see. John Malkovich helped me get a double stroller in the two doors
Are you kidding me?
of a Starbucks in Lincoln Park when I lived in Chicago. Yeah, that was pretty cool. He was sitting in the window and he saw me. When I was the nanny by day. And
John Malkovich?
John Malkovich, yeah. He got up and opened the doors for me, helped me get the
That's crazy.
double stroller in.
That is crazy. That's a good one.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, that's hard to beat.
So they filmed, when we were still living there, they were filming, what was that Will Ferrell movie in Flint?
The who?
What was it called? About the Flint Tropics.
Oh man. My wife loves that movie too. Love Me Sexy.
So a lot of them, were around
Oh,
town.
man.
And we spotted some of those folks. Semi-pro.
That's what it is. I've seen that movie like a billion times because my wife used to watch it whenever it was on. She loved that movie.
Yeah.
And don't lie and say you didn't, because she does that sometimes.
Oh,
No. My wife will say, "Oh, I didn't love that movie. I didn't watch it that many times." Yes,
it
you
was
did.
good. I enjoyed it too. But I read today a couple things that I didn't know. I didn't realize, or maybe I'd forgotten, but Casey Kasem started his radio show in Flint, Michigan.
America's Top 40.
Isn't that crazy?
That was my guy.
Yeah. Who knew? I didn't realize.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
I think that's a good one.
See, I never researched famous people from where I'm from. That's weird. I should have done that.
I just thumbed through Wikipedia. But yeah, so this, I think that our hometowns stay with us if we're lucky, if we, embrace that for sure.
They do.
Definitely an impact on who I am. It'll be interesting to see, since my kids have said what they feel like their hometown is, what that identity is that may shape them.
So your youngest moved here. When you moved here, how old was your youngest?
Let's see. Did she turn 10 here?
Oh, see, that's a big. See that? Yeah, 10 years old.
Yeah, she may have turned 10. Might have been her 10th birthday here.
So she was there longer than here.
Oh,
Both of them were.
Yeah.
But I was asking about her because it's similar to Tiara, but we moved when Tiara was 7.
Yeah.
That's
No,
much younger.
She'll still say, like, when we start talking about going to North Carolina, she talks about going back home.
See, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she, both of them, probably we all do, kind of romanticize it.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
we all do that.
The truth is, when Carolyn was there, she didn't have the circle of friends she has here, and we didn't have kids in the neighborhood, and she wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
Joseph had it a little different.
Her experience will be better here, but that still doesn't mean that she calls us home.
Right. You know, Joseph could go back. He goes back when we go back in the summer, and he stays with friends and kind of couch surfs for the week we're there or whatever to see everybody. And one year last summer when we went pre-pandemic, we left him the car when we went out to the beach. I don't know what I was thinking, but it all ended up okay, so I could say it now. You know, but Carolyn, when she goes back to visit, she visits adults. You know, like her favorite teacher, Mr. Smith, her first running coach, that is an awesome guy. Our neighbor across the street who, you know, was just the best neighbor you could ever have, ever. Plus, she was a yoga instructor and worked at Trio, taught yoga at our studio, and, you know, hosted Carolyn on many occasions.
I can't wait to see what my son thinks of Palm Coast. Like, you know, what will he think?
What will that impact?
Yeah, what will that impact be for him?
I know a little bit about what it is with my daughter right now.
What is it?
It's very sort of politically oriented, because right now we're still right now she'll talk about Palm Coast in a way that every time she sees an American flag on a truck, she has a negative reaction.
Because of Flagler County being so red. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I think my son is always gonna. I think a lot of his memories are gonna be basketball.
Oh, for sure. I mean, both of them, for
sure.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for him, he's been playing now since he was 8, and I think his popularity and friend making stemmed from there. Mm-hmm. A lot of it. He has some friends that though he's like me in that regard. Mm-hmm. Like, I have friends that I grew up with that are totally different than me, but I love them because they were the first ones. Yep. Like, he's got a friend named Maverick. They could not be more different.
Yeah.
Maverick hasn't grown, and he's dirt bikes and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Like, he's a southern kid, and my son could not care less. But you cannot say a bad word about Maverick. Right. Yep. You love him some Maverick.
Yeah, Joseph has 2 friends like that in North Carolina, and so they lived across the street from us for the longest time. And one boy was a little older than Joseph, and one boy was a little younger than Joseph. So at first, Joseph hung out with the older boy until the older boy went to middle school and then to high school, because you know that.
Yeah.
So he hung out with the younger boy, and now all 3 of you know.
But now they're old enough.
They're old enough that it doesn't matter anymore. But
so from your hometown, who is the best friend you have now that you could actually, that knows you and Joe and your family?
Let's see. There are a few. The first one that comes to mind is my friend Lisa. Hi, Lisa Roser, if you listen. I guess I'll find out if she listens now.
Yeah.
Yeah, she grew up on my street, and we weren't friends. We weren't super tight when when we both lived on the same street, but we grew up in Flint and went away and then became friends as adults when I came back to Flint. Mm-hmm. And she's very Flint, even though she lives in the suburbs now. And she's an awesome, awesome human being. And she's like somebody that I can just be me when I talk to her, and she gets it, and vice versa. You know, we can see something somebody else posts or something on the news or, you know, whatever, and we both look at it through that same lens, right? Of wherever. She's one of the first people to reach out when my dad died. You know, she knows my family. She knows my brothers. She knows, warts and all.
Yeah. So for me, from Flushing, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings from Flushing. I know a lot of people. But the one person who I've been friends with her since probably the first or second grade, and when I moved, we never lost contact. Her name is Ashira, and she came to my wedding. She's been in my home multiple times. Know my parents, grandparents, knows both my kids. When my dad died, she came to town and had to have lunch with me because she said she had to put her eyes on me to make sure I was okay. And then she realized I wasn't okay. So, and a matter of fact, she just texted me last week, and saying that she was in town and wanted to, her parents are older than mine, and so she kind of understands, like, the loss of a parent is tough.
Yep.
So, yeah, that for sure from Flushing, there's no question. She has been the most constant in my life throughout the years. Now, when I moved to Rochelle, I got 3 friends that I consider 3 of my best friends, and that's James, Chris, and Jason, that I spent almost every day with for for many, many, many years. They were all in my wedding and all that kind of stuff. And so, do you think today, now, we're talking about hometowns and stuff like that, I don't know if kids today value friendship as much as we did.
I think it's different because when we had friends growing up, we actually had to hang out with them.
Oh.
We had to be in the same room with them. We had to call them on the phone. Like, we had to relate to them in a different way.
Hey, listen, I had a conversation with my son the other day about some things. And I said to him, you guys nowadays want something for nothing. You want a relationship, an automatic best friends, or automatic you want your crush to like you, and you don't want to do nothing. All you want to do is snap or like a picture, that's not how that works.
Right.
Like, even in today's society, you still have, I remember, you had to go to their house, you had to
speak to their parents.
I was saying that to him the other day. I said, when I liked a girl, I had to call the house.
Anybody could answer.
Anyone could answer, and most times it was the father. And you had to say, good evening, Mr. So-and-so. May I speak to?
Yep.
And, I used to have to do that with Ashira, too. And we weren't even dating.
Yep.
We were just friends. If I wanted to talk to her on the phone, I had to call, sometimes talk to her dad or her mom or her older sister, and they would be like, yo, who is this kid calling you? You had to go through those things. Now, everyone's got a cell phone.
Well, everybody's got a cell phone.
And you can just get their number and you text.
And you don't even have to call them because you can just text them.
It's crazy. So, I those are the people who from my hometown have had the strongest foundation in my life. And I appreciate them greatly. They know that, though.
And I think that's why our kids, like you were saying before, their connections and their memories for Anthony and for both of mine are basketball related because that's who they see in real life. I mean, that's who they physically are in the same. I mean, they might be physically in the same room and still texting each other like your son and my daughter will do. But
insane.
Yeah.
But like I said before, I am so happy to be from where I'm from because I wouldn't be who I am today without it. And it's serendipity because you never know where you're going to be from, right? Like,
you don't pick that.
Like when my parents were looking for an apartment when they were just starting out, I don't know what made them pick Flushing, Queens. But if they hadn't, I think I'd be less of a man today. So I'm appreciative of that. And even though I gave them a whole bunch of shit for it, if we hadn't moved to Rochdale, I think I would be less of a man also. Because I think experiences there prepared me for life more.
And I definitely know that there is much about my perseverance and seeing beauty where others might not. 100% stems from where I'm from.
I think, we've had discussions before about social issues. And sometimes you don't understand, other white people don't see it how you do. And I say, well, other white people are not from Flint, Michigan. And so, you based your worldview on life experiences. And most of your life experience is going to come from your hometown. And so if you've seen racism, if you've seen social injustice, if you've hung out with black people, then you understand that. If you haven't, then you don't. And it's interesting because most of my friends from Flushing, are all over the social thing. Because like I said, we were in a multicultural society. They don't understand what's going on. Like they wouldn't think of me getting shot by the police when I was 14. So they're not down with that.
Yep.
But that's because of their life experience. If you grew up in a place where it was like homogeneous, all the same people, you don't get that.
Right.
So I think we're lucky in that regard. So serious today.
So serious. But it's going to be a great arc, I think, for our season.
And it's going to sound so great.
And it's going to sound so great.
I'm looking forward to the guests.
I really am,
I can't lie.
I hope that you listeners are also. Definitely, if you have missed anything in season 1, go back and check it out. We will continue to put up new episodes on Wednesday. Special guest next week.
Whoop. Our first one.
Our first in-studio guest.
I can't wait.
It's going to be really cool. We're excited to bring that to you. Definitely check us out. Check out our private Facebook group. All you have to do is search for the Strongly Worded Pod group. Find us on Instagram. Find us on Twitter at Strongly Worded P.
We got to tweet more.
We do need to tweet more. Really, the only thing we tweet right now are the links to our episodes. And we would love it if you would do that too. If you are on Twitter and you know of somebody that you know or that you follow or whatever that you think would be interested in one of these episodes, please tweet it to them. Please share it on your Facebook. We are setting some goals for this year to grow our listenership, and we can't do that without your support. So there's that. All right, Johnny, here's to season 2.
Here's to season 2. Can't wait.
Can't wait. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Strongly
I knew you were going to do that.
Johnny and Sue.
I got to sit the right way. I keep crossing my legs and my foot falls asleep. I'm like midway through the...
This Strongly Worded podcast is written and produced by Johnny Hampton and Sue O'Lear. Music production and vocals by Marshall Max LaMont Hamilton